Scholars have calculated one thing. Destroying human civilization doesn't require nuclear bombs or meteorites. It only requires the Earth to lose a little oxygen per second. After 8 minutes, your body will disappear on the spot. The most shocking thing is that this event actually happened once 550 million years ago. So today, let's recalculate how quickly human civilization would end if Earth lost 1% of its oxygen per second. In the first 10 seconds of the disaster, you would not notice anything unusual. At this moment, 90% of the atmosphere, still the oxygen air, looked normal, and the sky was still blue. But if you were a professional marathon runner or a heart failure patient in a hospital on a ventilator to keep your life running, the first thing you'd notice was wrong. Athletes would inexplicably struggle to breathe. Jogging would feel like they were sprinting the last 100 meters, while those critically ill patients already on the brink of death began to race, their bodies desperately grabbing less and less oxygen, but couldn't grasp it. Meanwhile, meteorological monitoring stations around the world began receiving abnormal data, and the readings on the instruments were slowly declining. Scientists stared at their screens, staring blankly, saying nothing, because what they saw had already exceeded everyone's understanding. 30 seconds passed. 26% of the oxygen in the atmosphere had disappeared, and you stood on the street. Suddenly, you felt your chest was being squeezed. Every breath like you were breathing a plateau. Your lungs were desperately expanding, but the air you breathed in grew holier. Pedestrians on the road slowed down. Some leaned against walls. Some squatted on the ground, their faces pale. And the hospital was in complete chaos. The alarm from the monitors sounded. Even stranger, birds began to fall en masse from the sky. Flying by birds consumes a lot of energy, and they've evolved the ability to take in 25% more oxygen than humans, but now, this advantage has become a burden. Once the air is fully inhaled, they can't hold on first. One by one, they fall from the sky, crashing onto roads and rooftops without warning. At the same time, large-scale traffic jams have started on highways in major cities worldwide, not due to traffic accidents, but because of the gasoline engine's design. The oxygen concentration is 21%, which is now insufficient. Engine RPMs drop, and even flooring the accelerator makes it impossible. Drivers get out of their cars one after another, only to find themselves gasping for breath even while walking. A whole minute passes, half of the oxygen in the atmosphere has already evaporated, and its concentration has dropped from 21% to 11%. At this moment, your lips have turned purple. You want to pick up your phone to call your family, but your fingers keep urging you. Your mind becomes muddled. You know what you need to do, yet you can't control your body. The scene on the street looks more like a Doomsday movie. Someone is shouting for help, but no one responds, because everyone is preoccupied with their own thoughts. Suddenly, a huge roar comes from the sky. You look up and see a passenger plane plummeting at an abnormal angle. The engine completely shut down. The pilot doesn't even have enough time to send a distress. Not only the plane, but the ships on the sea also lose power. The bulldozer on the construction site abruptly stops, and the entire industrial civilization collapses collectively within 60 seconds. 2 minutes later, 70% atmospheric oxygen concentration has dropped to 6%. At this concentration, humans and animals began to lose consciousness en masse, collapsing to the ground with pale faces. The last few patients in the hospital who had oxygen tanks could only watch as the barometer needle reset to 0. At that moment, something even more terrifying began. The atmospheric pressure dropped, causing ocean pressure to drop sharply. The oxygen dissolved in the seawater began to overflow massively, and fish and all marine life simultaneously entered a state of freezing death. Meanwhile, the ozone layer rapidly collapsed due to the loss of oxygen. The sun's ultraviolet rays struck the surface like a knife, unstoppable, and the skin began to burn. However, at this moment, few people could feel the pain. 8 minutes later, 99 years later, percent of oxygen depleted, concentration less than 1%. But what truly despairs is but that this disaster has not only consumed air from the start. Every oxygen-containing molecule on Earth is disappearing. The ocean is turning into a vast ocean of hydrogen. Rocks begin to crack. Calcium oxide in concrete loses its bonding power. And all the buildings humanity has spent thousands of years constructing have simultaneously turned to dust. The human body itself contains 65% oxygen. As oxygen disappears, the corpse does not decay, but immediately disintegrates on the spot, disintegrating into a blurred pile of debris. This is the largest extinction event in Earth's history, even more thorough than the meteorite that wiped out dinosaurs 65 million years ago. Without exception, no survivors exist. At least among higher life forms, there is not a single one without oxygen. Cockroaches that can last up to 40 minutes may be the first to resurrect. There are also the grotesque little animals like the spiral rat, which survived 18 minutes in an oxygen-free environment thanks to an emergency metabolic system switched to fermentation mode. Even more resilient were those who firmly believed that oxygen-swallowing bacteria breathe normally with oxygen, fermenting without oxygen to survive. If oxygen lasted 8 minutes, they would never die after miraculous recovery. These life forms will become seeds for a new round of evolution. Hundreds of millions of years from now, perhaps some kind of advanced civilization will emerge again. But that's another story. All we can do now is be grateful to live on a planet with 21% oxygen left, and then take a good breath.